I'll introduce myself first. I'm Casey Lowenthal. I'm the customer success manager here at Engage by Sell. My role is to really work with our current clients to help them find success within the platform that they've worked with. And hopefully today we hear 3 different success stories from organizations that have found the value in text messaging, and we're hoping that they can speak to what they've done and how they kind of went about it, and maybe from point A to point C to point Z, how they got to where they are today. So we have Chris and Monica from the Greater Rariton One Stop in New Jersey. Thanks for joining. We have Kimberly Woodard from Bethune-Cookman. Worked with Kimberly for years at a couple different organizations, so she definitely knows what she's talking about when it comes to texting. And then John from the Bowling Proprietors Association of America. John has a fun use case, not specifically just focused on bowling. It definitely will be training related that any of you guys can kind of find the application for today. So thank you all for joining. We're going to kind of go one by one for you guys in organizations, just to kind of pick your brain on it. But as we move on, I'm just going to give a quick little overview of kind of our services as well. As I just mentioned, 3 different organization types today: universities, workforce, as well as associations. We work with many different cultural institutions, nonprofits for fundraising. We kind of have a wide range of services, really focused on anything mobile. So if you can think it, we more than likely have a way for you guys to find some value in our services. So as our speakers today are talking about their use case, think about it a little bit in terms of how that might be applied to your business, whether that's internal communication, external visitors, fundraising, donors, all the kind of good stuff. We've been in business for 16 years. We actually started out with audio tour services when cell phones were a little less advanced as they are today. Now we just have mini computers in our pockets. So we've advanced to mobile sites and focusing on text messaging. But back then it was audio tours at museums. And from there, we've kind of branched out to a wide range of services. But today we're going to focus on texting, which we all do. I'm going to assume that 100% of the people on this call send text messages, maybe not on the daily, but definitely frequently. And with our organization, there's 2 different ways of texting. There is a 10-digit long code, which is approved through the phone carriers. That's the most common. And then we also have 5-digit short code procurement for organizations that have a higher volume and maybe want to have their own unique 5-digit code. The campaign gets approved through the phone carriers for legitimacy, and that kind of flushes your business out to be have a unique phone number and be approved by the carriers. And then our system is a 24/7 access platform that allows you to schedule messages out in advance and have a 2-way communication if needed. Evolution of texting, kind of like the evolution of our business that I just said. 2006 we were founded, and then it wasn't until 2017 that we really started pushing out text messaging as a form of communication. And then we hit more barriers. People thought text messaging was a little more intrusive. I think we've all kind of let that go the last 8 to 10 years. And then COVID actually ramped that up even more. Everyone was kind of spread out. People weren't down the hall in the office to communicate. So organizations really pushed messaging as a form of communication. And then even more recently, in terms of the workforce and government agencies, they've even approved WIOA funding, which some of maybe a buzzword for some of you on this call, to be approved for mobile services and text messaging. So anytime the government starts to approve those kind of things, I think we're in the this is okay to do. So let's be a little bit less fearful of this as a way to communicate with, whether it's any of the different options we're going to talk about today. Statistics. So we all do email. We do email here, so I'm not going to blast email. But if I'm going to blast email, open rates are terrible. Text messaging open rates very high. So within a couple minutes, most text messages are open. Within emails, you're around 20% is probably a pretty decent open rate for emails. So we're not saying get rid of emails. We're saying add text messaging as an additional form of communication to make sure that your messaging gets across. So we consider it a tool in your toolbox, but it's definitely the way that communication is moving. All right, so first up, we have Greater Rariton One Stop. Chris and Monica, thank you for joining. They are a workforce organization based in New Jersey. They've used us for probably 6 or so years, I think, 5 or 6 years, give or take. And primarily, they do job fair alerts along with other kind of training information to help users find jobs and get resources that's kind of valuable to their kind of current position. So job seekers and program participants. So thank you all for joining. First kind of question for you guys is, prior to bringing on text messaging, how were you communicating with your audience? What kind of information were you trying to get to them, and maybe what pains were you having with that way of communicating?
So prior to getting on board with Engage by Cell, we were using an email-based platform to send out information to our customers. So we are a government agency. We work with job seekers, getting them back into the workforce. And we were noticing through the analytics that entity provided to us that people were no longer not only, clicking on the emails to begin with, but clicking all the way through. And this became of concern to us because one, we're spending money on this platform in order to send out information. But more importantly, we're trying to get people back to work. And the information that we are sending out is on hiring events, job opportunities, workshops to help people get back into the workforce. And we want to make sure that that information is getting to people and that they're utilizing these tools so that they can get back into the workforce. So what we actually did is we started contracting with Engage by Cell, but we also kept the email platform, and we read them side by side for a year because, like Casey
Great.
said, there was a lot of skepticism around text messaging. Is this really going to work? But what we found, and especially nowadays, I'm sure a lot of people are in a similar situation. You sign up for something, maybe you sign up for a discount at a local store, your email gets flooded with junk. It gets flooded with junk emails. We were finding that individuals, a lot of times the emails were going right into their spam accounts, their junk mail accounts. They didn't even know that they were there. And if they did see them, they were just deleting them. They were concerned about clicking on those links. We were signing people up for that. Um, with Engage by Cell, people were self-subscribing, so they knew they were going to be receiving text messages. So when that text message would come to their phone, they had no problem at all with clicking on the link, taking it to the mobile site, because they knew that they had signed up and they knew to expect this. I'm going to hand it over to Chris just to talk to a little bit more about well, unless Casey, do you want me to say anything else about that? Do you have another question for
No,
us?
no, no,
Or
that's
just
great. I
keep
appreciate the
rolling
self
along
opt-in.
here?
That's a strong way
Yeah,
that people can
but
kind of build
yeah, so
their
after a
lists.
year, we made a decision that we were going to no longer use the email and just solely work with Engaged by Cell. And that's where we are. That's where we have been for a number of years, like Casey said. And it's been very successful. We get very positive feedback from everybody that subscribes to the service. And I can hand it off to Chris to talk to a little bit more about what we use it for
Yeah,
and how we use that, if that's okay,
perfect.
Casey.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, and not much to add. Monica kind of covered, how we used to do it and how we made the change. But, to piggyback on that, a disappointing part of using the email is when we saw the amount of just people who clicked the link or opened the email, it was disappointing. It was frustrating because, we're not selling anything, we're providing, a resource. And the fact that we were putting this effort in and getting no response was, it took a little bit of the wind out of our sails. So not only people weren't opening the email, but people were also unsubscribing because, they're inundated. So, over the years, we've had a chance to kind of really use it and you know, it wasn't a fluke. You know, more people are clicking on the links, are accessing the information. We want people to unsubscribe because we want people to get jobs and no longer use our services. But even with that, we do notice that, you know, the amount of people that unsubscribe, it's not, you know, when we send out text, it's not like a flurry of unsubscribes. People seem to be a little bit more comfortable receiving a text once in a while on a service they need rather than, you know, spam emails filling up their box. It also allowed us to be a little bit more real time because even myself, you know, I'm checking email all day, but with all the emails we get, things get put to the back burner, whereas text messaging was a little bit more immediate. So if we had to do a reminder for an event later in the day or the next day or a job that needed to be filled immediately, text allowed us to be a little bit more, you know, uh, live, real time.
Perfect. Yeah, no, absolutely. And how many users would you say you guys are pushing messages to
You
regularly?
know, we've I think last we checked, we're probably in the 600, 700
Okay,
range. And
perfect.
we're, you know, we serve two counties. We're not a state organization, we're a local organization. So we have, you know, about a rolling 6 or 700 people on our list that we send text messages to out generally once a week.
Perfect.
More if we have a special event or a reminder. But you know, it's a huge number for us because we know all of those people are actually engaging with
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
So it's a lot more impactful than having 5,000 emails being sent,
Mhm.
whereas, you know, 15
Getting
people
small
open it.
percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. When you guys went to go implement this strategy, did you hit any challenges with maybe management or the organization not wanting to move forward with a texting service?
I think that the county was very supportive of us moving forward. I think that the biggest thing for us is explaining to some people that might not be as technology savvy how to subscribe. But we walk people through that. We
Perfect.
have
Yeah.
put we have a short code and we have put that on all of our marketing material. So when people pick up our marketing material, they also have the opportunity to subscribe then. And we let people know if they are having any difficulty with subscribing. Maybe they've never done this. Not everyone has. We walk them through that process. They're always surprised at how easy it is to do. And they are always very pleased that, you know, they can expect, we send out one email every Monday at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that lets our subscribers know that we've updated our mobile site and to please check it for new information. So people kind of come to expect that once a week. They wait for that to come, they click on the link, they get updates. And like Chris mentioned, you know, if we have a big event going on, we do send out reminders,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
we don't have people unsubscribing, so we know that people are happy with the service.
Yeah.
Perfect. I
And
think we have some examples of that, of some of the signage that you guys have created, and that's perfect. I mean, we QR codes made a big comeback around the pandemic too, so we've implemented QR codes within our system for letting people opt in, and that's a great tool to add to like you have here on your signage
Mhm.
to quickly scan and send a text, as well as any sort of brochures. So yeah, you guys have done a good job getting the word out there.
And I will
Absolutely.
say too, you know, on our end, on our end of the platform, it's intuitive. It's not a heavy lift. It requires no specialized technology skills. It's really, it was simple for us to use. I mean, we kind of had a little team work together to update things weekly, schedule text messages, but you know, it was out of all the different systems we have to use in our job. It was nice that this one really didn't give us any headaches or glitches. It was pretty simple.
There you go. Yeah, no, we've tried to build this as it's not the end all be all. Like I said, it's a tool in the toolbox for different use cases in terms of marketing or employee engagement or workforce job seekers. So we've tried to make it as simple as possible for all of our users. So I appreciate you sending that. Um, Overall, so the results that you guys have had, you said about 800 or so. It probably grew as the years went on. Probably didn't start out with 800, so kind of seeing things grow over the years organically is probably the best way. Like you said, 800 active users versus 5,000 with some duds along the way. It's kind of a cleaner list for you guys to work with. So moving forward, do you guys have any plans or any new changes to what you guys might be implementing in terms of texting?
I will say that the biggest things for us was, the biggest impact for us was being able to share things real time. So hiring events, jobs, that's been the biggest thing for us. I think utilizing it more for to also use as like appointment reminders is probably another way that we could really dig in and utilize the text messages to further streamline what we do. It's not moving forward, but we didn't plan this, but having the text alert, the text in place when the pandemic happened was a huge lifeline between us and the community. When many organizations were shut down and people were just kind of overwhelmed, we were able to kind of have this kind of line of communication. Later on, our organization was hacked and we couldn't access our servers for an extended period of time, including our email. And we were able to just move to engage by cell and, kind of switch a lot of our communication over that way. So that was really helpful as well. The mobile site also, it was really useful for us in conjunction with the text messages. It allowed us to kind of compile a lot of information that we used to traditionally give people over the phone, whereas now we would just say, hey, we're going to send you a text, click the link, everything you need would be there. So we used it for a pretty narrow approach.
Sure.
But working with your team, there's definitely a few other uses that we are interested in implementing moving forward. Probably first one is using it for appointment reminders, in addition to just updates on our hiring events and workshops and stuff like that.
Great. Yeah. What Chris was referring to, the mobile site, we're not going to touch on that too much today, but you can visit our website if you want more information. It's a mobile web app that requires no coding skills on anyone's part, and is what they use it for is resource management to provide details about maybe a job fair, upload flyers, access resources in terms of who to contact, where to go for certain things. So yeah, it's definitely something to look into. The texting and mobile web together are a very harmonious product for sure. Awesome. Thank you, Chris and Monica, very much. We're going to hop over to John now at the BPAA Bowling Membership Organization. Thank you, John, for joining us. John uses us kind of similar use case in some ways, but just for a completely different organization. So upcoming events that they have, registration reminders, the mobile web service has surveys. You can also send surveys from another source directly in the text message, as well as other forms of communication. So thank you, John, for hopping on. Maybe you could start kind of similar question that Chris and Monica did. How were you guys communicating prior to bringing texting on board?
Prior to this. Well, first, the BPAA is the trade organization for entertainment. It could be a traditional bowling center up to a family entertainment center. If they have a bowling in it, then they can belong to that. And specifically, what we use it for is I'm in the education department, and one of our tasks is to help the proprietors improve their profitability. So in the education department, that's what we focus on. So we do education all around how do they get better? How do they get better at customer service? How do they get better at food and beverage and so on? Everybody on the team has an expertise that they used to contribute. So the way we communicate with them prior to what we're doing now essentially was they did do some texting. It wasn't as robust as what we do now. It was just kind of out there as reminders. So it was a little bit of a tease compared to what we do now. They used email back then too, and we still do. And what we found really is what's worked best for us is to keep a little bit of everything. So we use text service, we use email, and we use social media a lot to reach out because there's different audiences, and texting really reaches out to those that have opted in because they have participated in some kind of an education program. So kind of doing what we did, but we're just doing it a lot more targeted. We've gotten better at it over the time.
Okay, great. And about how many texts and emails do you say you send per week?
Well, we have about 1,500 that are opted in, and I think last year we did about 75,000. So it really depends on the time of year, what's going on. We have different management schools around the country. We have a couple that we do here at the campus in Texas, and then we also have some conventions. So it will spike up and down depending upon what's going on and how we need to reach out. But over the year, so that comes in, what is that, like 1,500 a week on average that we do.
Awesome, awesome. And once you kind of added the more robust texting, did you see an uptick in registrations or retainment or kind of growth within any programs?
We did. Really, and the way we're using it is for information and communication. And then we've also, another way that we've started to use it better is by marketing, and to let them know that, hey, this school is coming up. Hey, we have a studio here, and we put out a profit break every week, and we release 4 a month. And we typically will send it out and say, hey, this week's profit break is on X. Go, click on the link, and they can view it from there. So that's kind of how it's morphed for us. And the marketing has become a bigger and bigger part of it. And it's helped because our schools typically are full. We can communicate with them from the get-go. We know them what to expect when they get here. And we communicate with them by day. At the end of the day, hey, great day one, blah, blah, blah. Don't forget, tomorrow you start at 8:29 sharp, and we're going to be talking about this. They can communicate with us back and forth. If they need a ride, there's a problem. So it's really been a great communication tool for us, not just in advance and marketing wise to get people to notice it and to register for it, but also while they're actually on site. And for instance, where we do the couple of large conventions a year, and one of them is Bowl Expo, we'll say, and it's an international Bowl Expo. So it's a big deal. And we do a lot of education at this. And what we do is and I think you guys have a slide to it, but it's a two-way street. To get them to opt in, we give them something for it, and then they become part of our database. And we have very few people that back out because it is everything. We don't send it that often. We try not to overdo it. We do it when it's something relevant. So if we're doing one a week, that's a lot, depending on what's going on. But there's an example of how we do it during a seminar, during a school, where we have a speaker. It's like we get them to opt in. They use a QR code or use our number. And what happens is they get a return text, and then they can then access a link to all of the presentation materials. So if we've got somebody that's speaking on AI, for instance, and they want to get a copy of that presentation and any supporting resources that speaker has provided, that's how they do it. And that's how they access it. They get into our database. And typically they stay that way. They stay in there because they're users of education and they want to know what's out there. They want to know what the most recent profit break is. So it's been a great tool for that. We're just getting better at using it for marketing because we don't charge for our schools. When they go to a convention, they've paid to get in there. They come to the education is free. We do state custom content management schools. It's free to the state. So very few things do they have to pay. We try not to monetize the education much. It's because we're here to help them grow their business. So it's really easy for people not to opt out because it's not like we're trying to sell them something.
Perfect. Yeah, and you made a good point too. You said one a week, which doesn't seem like much with how many texts we all receive, but that's 4 a month. And with those messages, you definitely want to have a strategy behind them. Some organizations push out texts every day, but you really have to make sure that what you're sending out is relevant to your audience, and that limits any sort of opt-outs. If you're sending 5 texts a day and every single one of them is relevant and helps someone with their job or the purpose of what your message is, then you'll be fine. So I think with every organization, it's definitely find the strategy that works for you, try some things out along the way, and then you'll find that kind of sweet spot that you guys are in right now.
Exactly. And we use it in conjunction with email to,
Yeah,
use it to
exactly.
support the email and vice versa, as well as our Facebook page and such. So everything kind of supports each other.
Perfect. And then John also uses with text messaging an MMS service as well that allows within the body of your text to include an image, a little GIF, additional character counts, because the standard text has it does have some limits in terms of how large the message can be, and even some contact cards if you're trying to push out contact information directly.
Mm-hmm.
So John's kind of branched out into a few different ways to brand those messages to the BPAA as well.
Yeah, and those are certainly eye-catching because you don't necessarily expect, you've got something colorful in front of your face.
Yep.
So it took us a while to get into it, but we've used it sparingly, but it gets attention when you do it.
Perfect. And you've kind of touched on some of this in terms of what your results have been, as well as kind of plans moving forward. But anything else to add that you haven't already mentioned yet?
No, I think one of the way that we do use it during the conventions too is that when they've opted in so that they can get the resources, we then at the end of that session, we send them a text and ask them to complete a survey on what they felt about that session. So it's a great two-way street for us. It's helped us to get a lot more input because the old-fashioned way, when you go to these things, they hand you a piece of paper, and most people,
Sure.
they don't want to be rude. They just circle things, and this way they do it on their own time. They can, it's much more meaningful. We may not get as many back but what we get is quality, and that's been very helpful for us just to help improve the programs.
Yeah, and that might be similar to kind of Chris. Sometimes it's about quality over quantity. Absolutely. When it comes to that kind of stuff. Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, John. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. And then to finish us off, we have Kimberly Woodard from Bethune-Cookman. Thank you, Kimberly, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We've been working with Kimberly for years, actually worked with her at a previous organization as well. And she liked us so much that she had to call us. I think we might have been the first call when you got your new job to bring us on board. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
But Kimberly works with alumni of Bethune-Cookman for a variety of different services, including fundraising. She also uses a service of digital membership cards that we have, another one that you guys can look into. We're not going to touch on too much, but steering away from printing out physical alumni cards. We're doing digital cards sent via email or text message. So something else to look into, but thank you, Kimberly, for joining. Similar to how we've done it before, will you give us a little bit of how were you guys communicating before bringing on texting, and how has that been so far?
So we were actually doing snail mail. We were actually doing a lot of snail mail, postal mail services to communicate, as well as emails. So that was our way of communicating in the past. And I don't have to tell you, we're glad we moved away from that.
Did you stop physical mail altogether?
We didn't stop altogether. I guess like everyone else, we're using a hodgepodge of a little bit of everything, but it significantly cut our costs. So trying to send out snail mail. Also, one key thing about text messaging as a communication tool, we found out, and I might be jumping ahead, but we found out as one of our results that phone numbers stay more physical addresses.
Yeah.
So like myself, as an example, I've had my cell phone number since I was in college, and we won't tell you how many years that's been, but it's been way over 15 years. Okay. So, and I still have the same number. So we really love that part about it, especially being in a university setting.
That's a good point. Yeah, I have had the same number too since I got my first phone in high school. And I've probably had 10 addresses in between then. So if someone's trying to reach me via mail, there's very unlikely it's coming through. So that's a very good point.
Yes.
Appreciate you saying that. And then in terms of kind of your audience, who are you sending messages to? And kind of what sort of feedback have you received?
We're sending messages to our alumni database, which ranges from in the 90s to the early 20s, right? So we have a wide range of age discrepancy there, but everyone is enjoying the process of text messaging. It's much easier than email at this point too, especially for my senior alums. they can read that text message, click a link very easily versus opening up their email and going that route.
Oh, great. Great to hear that. So the older audience is preferring text message over email. Great.
Absolutely, absolutely. One key thing about text messaging, I'm gonna tell you, Casey, you know, I love the text messaging as a communication tool, but I love your company as well because I'm a small staff and have been at all my institutions I've worked at. And you guys provide us extra human resources, I think the audience should know. So it's not just that you're providing a service, you're also providing human resources that most of us small nonprofits can't afford. And so we appreciate that. But with our constituents, yes, they are loving the text messaging because for me, it's instant gratification. So instant communication, I can easily send out some desires and wants that I want my audience to respond to, and they do it because they see it. They don't have to open up an email, or they don't have to, even you get dinged with your email, you still have to go and open it up. Your text messages kind of
Sure.
just pop in there for you and you see it right away. So, and you can respond to it. So I've enjoyed it as administrator at the university because I get immediate gratification.
Yeah, and that's the thing with texting is some of us probably get that ding for emails, but I've shut off all dings of emails on my phone because there's so many of them. But a text will come through, whether you act upon it immediately, you're reading it at the very least, getting that information on. And if it's a link to follow up for some sort of action or a survey from John or a job fair from Chris and Monica, you're more than likely going to go revisit that. But once you open an email, sometimes there'll be a ton more that come in and flood it to the back of your inbox, and now you're
And
no
it gets
longer even
lost.
seeing it in there.
Yes. And you receive so many emails, as someone stated earlier, the spam, all the advertising and things of that nature
Yeah.
gets bogged down. And so even with my work email, I lose emails in work because the emails are coming so consistently throughout the day. You just have to stay on it. And your text messaging, yes, we don't text message people every day. We only, text them during a campaign or during an effort that we're trying to push. And as reminders. So awesome. I'll tell you one key thing that's helped me, since I have a small staff, our alumni database would say, and I'm sure all universities face this, we only hear from you when when you asking for money. And
Yeah.
so this way I can go in and preset some Valentine's Day messages, some Christmas messages, and they hear from us much more frequently than just when we are doing a fundraising campaign.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good one too. It's a lot of times is ease into the ask, especially on the fundraising aspect.
Yeah,
And that seems a lot less abrasive, but if they're prepared for it throughout the year rather than just that's the only text they get, you're going to be a lot more
that's
effective
right.
for sure. Did you at a university hit any sort of snags trying to implement a service like this?
So no, I think implementing for me was quite easy because we have a database. We uploaded their cell phones into the text messaging platform and then allow them to opt out if they would like to, but most people did not. What
Yeah.
we found out is that people were receiving text messages and then their friends would call and say, I'm not receiving a text message. And, I didn't know about this that came through text. And so we actually had more people to try to engage us in that manner than what we had originally uploaded. So we
Yeah.
didn't send out a QR code or anything like that. We did start implementing in our newsletters and our e-newsletters and things of that nature to say, if you want this option, you can do it. But initially to start up, we just imported them into our platform.
Yeah, that's a good point. Texting similar to email, there's an opt out. Anytime someone replies stop, it's
Yes.
opt out. And it's not hidden in a light gray text at the very bottom of an email that you can rarely ever find. So, and then they always tell you it's like 3 days until you're actually opted out with texting. If they're opted out, they're opted out. So, and they can always opt back in. And with that word of mouth that Kimberly talked about is you give them a little bit of that fear of missing out, and they'll opt back in to make sure that they get those resources or
Yeah.
alumni engagement, or they don't want to miss the tailgate for the football game if you send it out through the text message. Oh, I didn't check my email and I missed an event. So
Yeah.
things like that can definitely help bring some excitement to those
Yes. Yes.
Any additional tools or campaign styles that you plan to do in the next year or so?
Absolutely. Again, I have to give you guys credit at Engage by Sale because I feel like I'm growing with you. I feel like came along when you first was getting started, a couple of years after you started, and I've been excited to see the growth of this company. So as you said, we do the membership cards digitally. We had pushback. Some people said our constituents, especially our seniors, would not appreciate a digital electronic card that just goes right into their Apple or Google wallet. But we haven't had any complaints about not having a physical card in hand.
Great.
And so I'm excited about that. My next plan to move forward is my subgroups. I'm looking into, I've already talked to you guys about setting up platforms where the university can pay for the platform or add them to our account, and we have subgroups.
Perfect.
So my alumni chapters can actually take part and localize their text messaging to their audience in particular. So I'm super
Perfect.
excited about that.
Yeah, no, and that's a fun way to do it too. We usually start in one department when we work with an organization, but as we've seen today, 3 different use cases. It can branch out through different departments too. So sometimes you can get buy-in or even get some funding from a colleague who has a little bit of a budget, and you guys can throw it on together to get things approved. So that's awesome. I appreciate that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate that. We're going to do a little example now. So both ways that you can opt in. You can open up a text message. The phone number you'd put is 56512 and put the word demo space webinar, or try it out with the QR code. Just open up your camera, point it at that QR code. It'll autofill all of the details that I just sent, and then you just simply hit send your message. And this is any phone with a camera with a QR code or any text messaging service. And that'll opt you in. I promise you, we will not send you much more than the next couple of minutes. But that'll give you guys kind of an example of an immediate response back, as well as what that could be as you're opting into future messaging about any sort of details. So think of that in the application of your organization and how you guys might be able to use that. And then I think that kind of pulls
Casey,
up in terms
I
of,
would love to share one more thing, and that's,
yes,
and
please
I know you
do.
might not want to talk about this, but I think it's very important for small organizations. The expense of it is not overwhelming or ticket shocker, right? So I
Yeah.
definitely would like your audience to know that even if they're coming from a smaller organization, because our HBCUs doesn't have a robust budget. And so it is very cost effective. You would definitely get a return on your investment, the initial investment that you make, and continuous investment. So I definitely want to share that because I don't want people to leave here thinking this is out of financial reach.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm.
that's great. I appreciate you saying that. And that's true even outside of financial reach, just sort of like an audience reach. If you have 50 people that you're trying to communicate with for at a conference or a board meeting or a company retreat, you can do that, and you can go up to, we have organizations that send out 50,000 texts a day for job fairs and different things. So anywhere in between, the services themselves are easy to implement, easy to use on a daily basis. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's very, very good point. All right, now if anybody in the chat has any questions for any of our speakers or myself, throw it in there. But while you're sending those out, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you to our speakers for providing some great information and the use cases for your guys' application. A question from John about CRM integrations. We do have quite a few different integrations with a variety of softwares. It varies based on what you need it to pull from our system into your CRM and what CRM you are. So yeah, reach out to us. We have our email there. You may have been contacted by somebody when you signed up for the webinar. You can follow back up with them, and we can explore what that integration might look like. And then outside of integrations, everything in our system does download into Excel as well as PDF. So if it's something where you just need some information that's easily accessible, and like I said, 24/7 access for sure. We had another question come through about monthly costs. It really based on range and volume of what you plan to push out messaging to. So yeah, it's typically around 200 to 300 bucks a month, all the way up to a few thousand a month. So it's really based on what you guys plan to use it for. So similar to John reaching out, reach out to one of our team members, or we can reach out to you with some more information about pricing.
If I can jump in one more time, Casey.
Yeah,
I just want,
absolutely. That's why we brought you on, Kimberly.
it is tech savvy easy, right? I don't want anybody to think they leave here to thinking they have to be an IT expert, because I am not, and I manage this right here with a two-man shop. So know that you don't have to be a tech genius to do this. It's very user friendly, technically
Great.
speaking.
Yeah, we've definitely we tried to build it that way. We know a lot of you guys work in the industries that you do because you're not a software engineer or in IT. Granted, we work with software engineers as well as IT, but we've built a product that doesn't require that. So appreciate you mentioning that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Casey, one quick little story just to demonstrate how it works. We were at one of our trade shows, and just to see what would happen, we sent out a text to everybody that had registered through at the show, and we just said, hey, the first 25 that come by our booth this morning get a free gift. Amazing. The lines that came to, we were just giving away a little swag bag with nothing in it. The point is that it got to them. This was within 10 minutes of the show opening. It got to them right away. They read it, they understood it, they had it straight for our booth. And again, most of these people we know anyway, but I was just giggling. It's like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So it not only is it easy to use, as Kimberly says, but it actually works.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of that fear of missing out. I mean, who knows what that gift is that you maybe would have given it out anyways.
It's free.
Yeah, it's free, and I can't not be one of the first 25. So that's awesome. I appreciate that. That's a good use case for sure. And that's similar to, I mean, we have HR organizations that sometimes find it hard to get people to opt in. They have enough employee communication, things go around a bit. If you're the person that didn't find out that there were food trucks in the parking lot that day because you weren't on the text chain, or you didn't get the opportunity to sign up for the holiday party or something of that sort, there's a lot of different use cases for this platform. So if you have ideas about how to use it, it's more than likely a pretty good idea. So we hope that you guys found some value in hearing our speakers today. And doesn't look like there's too many questions in there, so I'm gonna let you guys all get back to work today, and just want a sincere thank you for everyone joining today and for our speakers today.
Okay, so long.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.